You are a disgrace to this uniform. Get your things and get out of here. The manager's voice, a low and venomous hiss, cut through the midday clatter of the Silver Spoon Diner. We don't have time for incompetent staff like you. The sentence was punctuated by the sharp, ugly crack of an open palm against flesh. The diner, a bustling haven of sizzling bacon and brewing coffee just a moment before, fell into a cavernous silence. A fork, halfway to a customer's mouth, clattered onto a ceramic plate. A child's laugh died in his throat. Every eye was fixed on the space between the ordering counter and the swinging kitchen doors. Only the low, mournful hum of the soda fountain cooler dared to make a sound. There, a young black waitress stood, her head tilted slightly from the force of the blow. Her cheek was already blooming with a furious red, a stark contrast to her dark skin. But her spine was a rod of steel. Her eyes, steady and unbroken, did not well with tears or flash with anger. They held a profound, unnerving stillness. No one in that diner, from the shocked patrons in the worn vinyl booths to the cowering staff behind the counter, could have possibly known that in less than 5 minutes, the woman they saw as a clumsy waitress would bring the entire establishment to its knees. The manager, a man named Mr. Croft with a perpetually flushed face and a tie that was always just a little too tight, had just struck her. His chest heaved, his own hand tingling from the impact. He was a man drowning in a sea of his own inadequacy, grabbing at any life raft of authority he could find. Today, that raft was the public humiliation of his newest employee. Bystanders were frozen in a tableau of disbelief. A group of construction workers in a corner booth lowered their heads, suddenly fascinated by the salt shakers. An elderly couple near the window exchanged a wide-eyed, horrified glance but said nothing. The other staff, a seasoned waitress named Brenda, a young busboy, and the 2 line cooks visible through the pass-through window, became statues. Brenda polished a clean glass with a frantic energy, her eyes glued to the task. The busboy, a teenager named Finn, looked as if he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Their silence was a thick, suffocating blanket. Beneath Croft's blustering rage, a small seed of panic began to sprout. He had expected tears, a frightened apology, a hurried retreat. He had not expected this quiet defiance. Something in her composure unsettled him, chipping away at his fragile dominance. It was like shouting at a mountain and expecting it to crumble. Her name tag read Maya. She was 28 years old, and the faint, almost invisible scars on her knuckles told a different story than the crisp, clean waitress uniform she wore. Those scars weren't from kitchen accidents. They were from years spent in disaster relief zones around the world, setting up field kitchens and supply chains in the chaotic aftermath of earthquakes and floods. She had negotiated with warlords for safe passage of food supplies and stared down armed guards to ensure medicine reached the sick. She had learned, in the harshest classrooms on earth, that the loudest person in the room is often the weakest, and that true power lay not in volume, but in resolve. Standing in this small, greasy spoon diner in a quiet American suburb, she felt a familiar ache rise in her chest. It was the ache of watching good people do nothing. The smell of stale coffee and grease was a world away from the dust and desperation she was used to, but the human element, the paralysis of fear, the bystander effect, was universal. She felt the sting on her cheek, a hot, radiating pulse. She heard the nervous shuffle of feet on the checkered linoleum floor. She saw the collective decision to look away. Inside her, a memory flickered to life. A crowded refugee camp in a forgotten corner of the globe. A corrupt official hoarding supplies, screaming at a desperate mother. Maya had stepped between them, her voice low and even, her gaze unwavering until he backed down. That night, her mentor, an old, grizzled relief worker, had told her something she never forgot: authority is taken, Maya. Respect is earned. But dignity is inherent. Never let anyone, no matter how powerful, convince you it's a privilege they can grant or revoke. Croft, emboldened by the lack of resistance, took a step closer. Did you hear me? You're fired. Now get out before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. The other staff members flinched but remained silent. Brenda wouldn't meet her eyes. The cook in the back, a large man named Gus, turned his back completely, busying himself at the grill. Their complicity was a second, sharper slap. Maya finally moved. Her motions were slow, deliberate, each one drawing the attention of the entire room. She did not reach for her bag or her coat. She did not wipe a tear from her eye. She adjusted the collar of her uniform, a small, simple act of reclaiming her composure. Then, she reached into the front pocket of her apron. Croft smirked, assuming she was getting her keys. That's right. Run along. But she didn't pull out keys. She pulled out a sleek, modern smartphone. The device looked jarringly out of place in the dated diner and against her simple uniform. Her fingers, steady and sure, tapped the screen twice. She placed the phone on the worn laminate countertop, screen up, and pressed a single button. A man's voice, crisp and professional, filled the silent room, amplified by the phone's speaker. Harrison here. Croft's smirk faltered. What is this? He demanded, his voice a little less certain now. Maya ignored him. Her gaze remained locked on his, her voice calm and clear, but with an undercurrent of iron that no one in the room had heard before. Mr. Harrison, this is Maya Richardson. I need you to conference in Ms. Albright from Human Resources, please. We have a Code 0 situation at location 714". The name, Maya Richardson, meant nothing to Croft or the staff. But, Code 0, and the sheer authority in her tone caused a ripple of confusion. Mr. Harrison's voice returned, now joined by a woman's. Ms. Albright is on the line, Ms. Richardson. What's the situation? Croft's face, which had been a mask of red anger, was starting to pale. What kind of stunt are you pulling? He stammered. Maya finally broke her silence, her voice soft but carrying to every corner of the diner. Mr. Croft, she said, her eyes never leaving his. For the last 4 weeks, I have been working here undercover. My name is Maya Richardson. I am the acting CEO of Hearthstone Hospitality, the parent company that owns the Silver Spoon Diner chain. A collective gasp swept through the room. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated shock. Brenda's hand flew to her mouth, the polishing rag falling to the floor. Gus, the cook, slowly turned from the grill, his face a mixture of confusion and dawning horror. Finn, the young busboy, simply stared, his eyes wide as dinner plates. My father, Arthur Richardson, built this company from a single diner just like this one, Maya continued, her voice gaining strength. He built it on a simple principle, that everyone who walks through our doors, whether they're a customer spending $1 on a cup of coffee or an employee washing dishes in the back, is treated with basic human dignity. He passed away 6 months ago, and I inherited his life's work. I've been visiting our locations unannounced, not as a CEO, but as a member of the staff, to see if his principles were still alive. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Her gaze swept over the frozen staff, lingering on each of them for a moment. It has become clear to me, she said, her voice now sharp with disappointment, that at location 714, they are not. She looked back at Croft, whose face had crumpled into a mask of pure terror. Mr. Croft, your employment with Hearthstone Hospitality is terminated, effective immediately, for gross misconduct and physical assault on an employee. Mr. Harrison, please dispatch a security team to this location to escort Mr. Croft off the premises. I will be pressing charges. You can't, it was a mistake. Croft sputtered, his voice cracking. She was incompetent. She broke a whole tray of plates. No, Maya corrected him, her voice dangerously quiet. Finn dropped a tray of glasses because you were screaming at him for being 2 minutes late. I stepped in front of him. You slapped me for defending him. But that is almost beside the point. She turned her attention to the rest of the staff, her expression hardening. Brenda visibly shrank. Gus looked at the floor. My father used to say that a business is a community, and a community is defined by the standards it is willing to enforce. The standard you have all enforced here today is that it's acceptable to watch a colleague be berated, humiliated, and physically assaulted, and to do absolutely nothing. Tears began to well in Brenda's eyes. We were scared, Maya. Ms. Richardson. He's a monster. We'd lose our jobs. You are right about one thing, Maya said, her voice devoid of sympathy. You are going to lose your jobs. All of you. A new wave of shock hit the room. This was not a surgical strike, it was a demolition. Ms. Albright, Maya said into the phone, her eyes still scanning her silent, terrified employees. Please process the immediate termination of every staff member currently on duty at this location. The reason is complicity in fostering a toxic and unsafe work environment. Their severance will be the legal minimum. I will not reward cowardice. But, we need this work. Brenda cried out, her voice breaking. I have a family. So does Finn, Maya shot back, gesturing to the pale-faced busboy. The youngest and most vulnerable member of your team, and not a single one of you had the courage to stand up for him. You didn't just fail me, you failed each other. You let the poison of one man corrupt this entire diner. You watched it happen day after day and you chose silence. Silence is a choice. Your silence was your endorsement. Your silence was your resignation, you just didn't know it yet. Her words hung in the air, heavier than the smell of stale grease. The customers sat in stunned silence, witnessing a corporate execution. Hearthstone Hospitality is not just a collection of buildings, Maya declared, her voice ringing with the conviction of her father's legacy. It is a promise. A promise of a safe place, a decent meal, and mutual respect. You have all broken that promise. This diner will be closed temporarily. When it reopens, it will be with a new team, from the manager down to the dishwasher. A team built on the courage you all so painfully lack. The jingle of the bell above the door announced the arrival of two large men in discreet security uniforms. They moved with quiet efficiency toward Mr. Croft, who looked as if he might faint. He tried to protest one last time, his voice a pathetic whine. Please, Ms. Richardson. I have a mortgage. Maya's gaze was like ice. Dignity is not a line item on a budget, Mr. Croft. It's the foundation. And you tried to bulldoze it, she then looked at the silent, weeping staff. Respect costs nothing. But as you are all learning today, losing it can cost you everything. The security guards flanked Croft, gently but firmly taking his arms. His manager's pin clattered to the floor as they led him out the door, his protests dissolving into the afternoon air. Maya then turned her attention to the rest of the staff. Your final paychecks will be mailed to you. Please collect your personal belongings and leave. Now. One by one, they shuffled toward the back, their faces a mixture of shame, anger, and despair. There was no shouting, no drama. Just the quiet, methodical dismantling of a broken culture. As the last employee walked out, Maya turned to the stunned patrons. Her entire demeanor softened. The CEO vanished, and a gracious host appeared. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice warm and clear. On behalf of Hearthstone Hospitality, I deeply apologize for the disgraceful scene you were forced to witness today. This is not who we are, and I give you my personal guarantee that it will never happen again in this establishment. Your meals today are, of course, on the house. Please, finish your lunch in peace. We will be closing in 30 minutes to begin the process of making this right. A few people started to clap. It wasn't the wild applause of a show, but the slow, steady rhythm of recognition and respect. Maya walked over to the busboy, Finn, who was the only one left, still standing by the counter, looking lost. You didn't look away, Finn, she said softly. You were scared, but you didn't turn your back. When this diner reopens next week with a new manager and a new team, I'd like you to be a part of it. If you'll have us. The boy's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were tears of relief. He nodded, unable to speak. "Go home for today," she said, giving him a small, reassuring smile. "HR will be in touch." He nodded again and practically fled out the door, a weight lifted from his young shoulders. Maya stood alone in the center of the now emptying diner. The hum of the cooler seemed louder now. She gently touched her cheek, the sting finally beginning to fade. It was replaced by the steady, quiet pulse of justice served and a promise kept. The diner would be rebuilt, not just with fresh paint and new tables, but with a renewed foundation of respect. She knew the road ahead was long, but as the afternoon sun streamed through the front window, warming her face, she felt her father's presence. She had protected his legacy, not with a raised voice or a show of force, but with the silent, unshakable strength of her convictions. In the quiet that followed the storm, a new beginning was waiting.